Alright, hello, this is Ms. Granucci, and I'm going to show you how to plot these data points into Excel. Not only that, but I'll show you how to use some really nice tricks in Excel to help you with your data and how to graph and add trend lines and everything to make your graph look good. Okay, so if you notice here, I just started to enter some of my data in for the lab. Now, I made up this data, so obviously you'll see variations. My data is very pretty. Obviously, it's going to look a little different when you have it. So, a couple little tricks just to show you off bat. Let me just get rid of this for a second, but let me show you that what you could do is you can actually have Excel do counting for you. So what I'll do is I'll put the first few values in here like this, -2 like that. Now, if you have something that's, something like a pattern like this, what you can do is you can highlight these three, and then Excel will say, oh, I bet you the next value you want is -1.5, -1, etc. And look, I could just drag it down, so I don't have to make all these, inputs really quickly. Now, something I've already done too is I made our numbers appear in the center just because it looks better. Something else I want to point out is notice that there's no units, just numbers. Put the units in the top. If you have units, then your graph will not graph appropriately. Excel needs to see that you're graphing numbers, not numbers and letters. Something else too you might notice, I already kind of corrected, is when I was typing this in, I noticed that some of this was cut off. To adjust for the columns, if you put your mouse in between the two columns you want to make wider, you can either double click and it automatically adjusts it for you, or you can manually do it. You can see that you can do that, but I want to make sure that the whole thing is presented here. So there you go. Another trick you could do, which I mentioned in the lab, is you can actually go from milliamps to amps without doing multiple calculations on your calculator. You can have Excel do it for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say equals, which tells Excel that you want to do a calculation. Just for a quick example, if you notice that if I do 6 plus 6, it spits out the answer 12. So the equal sign is the thing that tells you want to calculate something. So I want to convert these milliamps to amps. So in order to do that, I know that there's 1,000 amps in 1 milliamp, so I need to divide right here. And there you have it. It's going to be a small number. We're going from something small. We're going from a small measurement to a large measurement, which makes it small. Another great thing about Excel is I want to repeat this calculation, so I'm actually going to have Excel do it for me. So if you notice that there's a tiny green box right there, and when I put my mouse over it, it makes the cross that I have here into a solid black cross. And if I click and drag like that, notice that it did the calculation for me. So that saves a lot of time. So there you have it. So something I want you to do in the lab too, and notice that I'm going to also do this, that makes it look nice, is I'm going to put borders on here, because when you print this off, or if you have it in your lab, it won't have borders. So I'm going to go to the borders option right here and add all borders. That just makes things a little nicer. And there you go. And again, just to make things look nice and neat, I think what I'll do is make those bold. And then you can, be picky with your spacing, make it look reasonably spaced. There you go. That looks nice. Look how nice that looks. Alright, so let's say that's your data table 1. And, again, I'm just making up the data, so just for, sake of completing this, I'm actually just going to copy and paste this. You can actually do this too. Change this to data table 2. This would be the light bulb, right? And then these values will change. Now, the beauty of copying and pasting this table is it saves the calculation. So if I change this, and right now, like I said, I'm just going to make up the number. So, but I want to make them similar to these, not the same. Let's make this negative 25. and I press enter, you'll see that in this column right here, it's already converted it. So pretty cool. So again, I'm making up these numbers. Naturally, you'll want to make these numbers work the way you need to. And then I'm going to just replicate the same up here. So again, I am making these up. Clearly these will be your data points. There you go. And I purposely made it, a different shape of this graph just to show you how it may not make this shape, by the way. I'm totally making a guess here. But I'm just making the data not exactly like this. So you got to make a graph of this. So the first thing you got to do is just click off, click an empty cell over here because you don't want to select any of this. And what you want to do is the best way to make a graph is not highlight this stuff because it's not going to graph what you want. You want to tell Excel what you want it to graph. So like I said, select this. Then you're going to go to Insert. And then the best one you want to go to is this one right here, the scatter plot. Then it asks what kind of scatter plot. We want the one without the lines. That's the one we're going to do. So if I click on this, and if you get a blank graph, that is perfect. I'm just going to make this, pretty big like that. Alright, so to put data on this graph, you're going to right-click on your mouse. You have this option to select data, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're telling Excel what we want. And what I'm going to do is I have to add data. Now it's going to ask for a series name. It's like what data you're going to use. So the first one is the resistor. That's a series name. Now it wants the series X value. So we're going to plot the voltage, I believe, on the X, right? Let me just double check your lab. Pretty sure. I'm just going to do a quick cheat here. Let's see. Yep, voltage X, I is that. Okay, so X is going to be the voltage. So I'm going to highlight just the numbers, not the title. Notice I didn't highlight the title, just the numbers here. Then I press that button again to get me back to this screen right here. Then I'm going to highlight my series Y values by clicking this button. The same thing. We want it in amps, not milliamps. So that's what I want there. Okay. And press OK. So I added the resistor data. Now I want to add the light bulb data. So I got to add that data. So there it goes. This is going to be the light bulb data. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I want the X and Y. So the X just happens to be the same, which is, of course, what we want. And this is the Y, which we're going to highlight here. Again, notice I'm not highlighting this. It's just numbers, just like that. And press OK. And press OK. And then, there we go. We have two data plots. Look how nice it looks. How cool. Okay. So, first of all, this is great. It looks pretty appropriate. What I want to do is go to Add Element Chart. So notice I need a title. Let's do a title above the chart. I need to add axis titles. So there we go. Add axis titles. There we go. Remember that this is the current. Oops. Current on the in amps, and this is voltage on the. And then I'm gonna have you write the title because I want you to practice this. So I'm gonna put descriptive title up here. Now remember, I don't want just current versus voltage. I want something a little more formal for this. So for now, will do this, but this is how you get that. Now, this is fine. I like how these are two different colors. If they weren't, what you can do is you could right-click, and you can go to Format Data Series. Now, notice that I highlighted the light bulb one. And what you could do is, if you click on this, you get marker options. And let's change the color of the marker. I kind of want more of a yellowy, just because I think of light bulbs are yellow. So color is, so that's, I'm sorry, the marker fill, solid. And let's change it to that yellowy color. There we go. Oh, that's ugly. That's okay, that's a little better. And then what you could do too is marker options. You can actually change the data point. I'm going to change it to a star. I can make them large. I can make them small. I'm actually going to leave it pretty large because, you know, it's just easier to see, right? And then you could do the same thing with the blue guy. So same thing. I'm going to make these a little larger just because it's nicer. And I'll leave them as blue. They look fine like that. So there you go. See how you can see the data points much better? Just like that. The last thing I want to do is add a trend line for both sets of data. So what I'm going to do is pick one of them, the light bulb series. I left click, then right click. So I can select all the points, and then it says add trend line. And if I scroll down, that's exactly what I want to do, is I'm adding a linear trend line. Perfect. Equation r squared. And just like, here we go. So I want to put this so, you know, one thing is I could do is I can make this graph do this. And what I can do is make it so that I know which was which. So I know this one's on top, so that's that you know, piece of information. And then the same thing, I'm going to right click, add trend line, linear, good, equation r squared. Very good. And that one will go right here. You can add labels. I think you can add the legend, right? Here we go. Add legend. Let's add it to the right. And there we go. By doing that, what you could do is, well, according to the legend, the resistor is on top and this is on bottom. But anyway, or you could do it such that it's next to it. But anyway, try to figure out a way to put this so they're next to the appropriate data point, so I know which is which, like this. But here you are. Here is your data table. Now what you could do is you can definitely take this and copy and paste this into your lab notebook. You can, you know, play with some other features, like the size of I would make this bigger just because it's kind of hard to read, and I would make it black. I don't know why it's that color, and it can move it around just so it's easier to read. Same thing. You could actually do it here too. Make it like that, black. You could always change this, move this around. I mean, you can get really fancy like that. His descriptive title will definitely be bigger in black. Just there we go. And there you have it. That's what I expect you to put into your data. Your formal lab. Now, the beauty of doing this is you can see both things on the same graph, which is really nice. You could also easily compare these values right here. Now, remember, when we calculate some of these resistances, we're going to take the slope of the graph, which is the number next to the x. That's the slope. And from the slope of the graphs, we should find the resistance. So, for the resistor, I'll do it really quick because I have a quick minute. What we're going to do is, we know the resistor, when we calculate the resistance, it's going to be 1 over the slope. So 1 divided by the slope of the resistor, 0.004. So the resistor should read 250, and you can actually check your, your lab data to see if that's true. Let's see what the light bulb is measuring. So it's going to be 1 divided by the slope. So the slope over here, if you read it, is 0.0091, 109. And those are in ohms. So that's how you can use your graph to figure out what the resistor or resistance of it is. Now, we don't know what the resistance of the light bulb is, but we do know the resistor. So from this, you should be able to calculate your percent error and see how well your lab measured the resistor's resistance. And then you can see if these are ohmic or not. You can see the trend line here looks pretty straight, which is one of the conditions for the ohmic device. But if you look at this one's doing something a little funky. It's not exactly straight, so I'll leave it up to you to decide if this is actually making up an ohmic material. That concludes our video on how to make your data tables and your graph for your formal lab.